What if healing doesn't make you feel better at first? What if doing the deepest inner work actually makes you feel nothing at all? You faced your past, you met your shadow, you dismantled every mask, and now all you can feel is silence. Have you been there? That hollow space where motivation disappears, where you wake up with no fire, no fear, and strangely, no drive. It feels like you broke something. But what if nothing is broken? What if that quiet ache inside you is not depression, but the sound of your old self, letting go? Carl Jung once wrote, "The collapse of the persona is often mistaken for depression." He wasn't being poetic. He was warning us that healing, real, deep, soul-level healing, doesn't end in clarity or joy. It ends in stillness, in confusion, in what feels like failure, but is actually a sacred pause. There's something no one tells you about this phase, but that's why we're here. If you've been feeling empty after doing everything right, stay. You're not lost. You're standing at the beginning of who you were meant to become. No one tells you this part. They tell you healing is hard, but they don't tell you it ends in quiet. They say shadow work is messy, but they don't say what comes after is even stranger. Because here's the truth, shadow work doesn't leave you elated, it leaves you emptied. You think, I faced the fear, I healed the wounds, where's the joy? But what arrives instead is nothing. And nothing can feel terrifying. You were fueled by fear for so long. It got you up early. It pushed you to succeed. It whispered, be better or else. And you obeyed. Shadow work turns the lights on. You see the fear. You see the trauma. You stop obeying, and the machine stops running. Suddenly you're not running toward validation. You're not chasing love. You're not afraid to fail. Because you no longer measure worth by success. But without fear, what drives you? That's the uncomfortable space. You're not broken. You're just no longer performing. But you don't yet know how to move without the mask. It feels like freefall, like floating in the dark, like waiting for a voice that isn't speaking yet. That space is called the void, the liminal, the in-between, and it's sacred. But our culture doesn't honor it. We rush it. We label it depression. We medicate mystery. We fear the stillness. Jung didn't. He called it transformation. He called it the negrido, the death before the rebirth. It's the winter of the soul, the moment before spring, the space between who you were and who you're becoming. You don't feel like yourself because you're not. That old self dissolved. And the new one hasn't spoken yet. That's not failure. That's the pause between acts. It's not a problem. It's a sacred preparation. So if you're here, floating, numb, confused, don't fight it. You're not alone. You're just in the part no one warned you about. The silent room at the end of the tunnel, where your soul catches its breath before the light returns. Let's talk about what used to drive you, the old fuel, the old fire. It felt powerful, didn't it? Like ambition, like hunger, like purpose. But really, it was fear in costume. It was anxiety dressed as productivity. It was pain pushing you to prove your worth. You chased success, not because you loved the game, but because you were terrified of losing, of being seen as small, of being forgotten. Every goal was survival, every win a breath of safety, every failure a collapse of identity. That wasn't motivation, it was strategy. To avoid abandonment, to feel enough. Shadow work reveals the engine. It shows you what was really driving the car. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You realize your to-do list wasn't about progress. It was about protection. Your achievements weren't joy. They were armor, and now that armor is gone. So you feel exposed, not just still, but uncertain who you are without the chase. This isn't regression. It's awakening. The illusion cracked, and now you're in freefall. But it's real. You're not failing. You're grieving the self who survived by performing, grieving the dream that was never truly yours. That grief feels like apathy, but it's not. It's a detox from urgency, from striving, from lies. You no longer believe that you must earn love. You no longer believe your value is tied to output. And with those beliefs gone, the rewards vanish too. It's disorienting, but it's also truth. Pure, raw, silent truth. And in that space, something else begins. Not a fire, a whisper. It says, what if you only created what you loved? What if you moved because you wanted to? What if you didn't need permission? That whisper is real, but it's quiet. Too quiet for a life filled with noise. So shadow work silences the noise, not to punish, but to prepare you, to finally hear yourself. There's a moment in deep healing when something inside you just stops. Not a breakdown, a letting go, a surrender of who you thought you had to be. That's the persona, the mask, the role, the character you built to survive. It worked. It got you love. It got you jobs. It helped you navigate the world. But it was never you. It was who you thought you needed to be safe, to be seen, to belong. And when that mask falls, you feel naked. exposed, like a puppet with no strings. This is what Jung meant. The collapse of the persona is often mistaken for depression, not because you're broken, but because the old self is gone. You don't recognize your goals, your passions, even your relationships. They feel distant, like someone else's life. That's because they were built around the mask, not the self. And when the mask dissolves, so does the life it built. It's painful, but it's necessary, because the real self can't rise until the false self steps aside. And in between, you drift, you question everything. You wonder, was any of that ever real? The truth? It was survival, not identity, not purpose, not truth. And now you're ready for truth, even if it's quiet, even if it doesn't come with applause. The death of the persona leaves you empty, but that emptiness is sacred. It's not a void, it's a womb. Something is forming, slowly, silently, and your only job is not to fill the silence, but to stay and listen, because beneath the stillness, the self is speaking, not the performer, not the pleaser, the one who was always there, waiting to be heard. Let's talk about the void, the space after the mask dissolves, where everything goes quiet, where identity unravels, where certainty dies. It's not depression, it's not failure, it's transition, the pause between versions of you. You're not who you were, but not yet who you're becoming. And in that gap, it's silent. No drive, no spark, no urgency, just space. It feels like waiting for instructions from a voice that isn't speaking. But that silence, it's sacred. It's not a lack, it's a container. Jung called it negrido, the blackening, the dissolution before rebirth, the death of what was. So something true can rise. Our culture fears that silence. We medicate it, rush it, try to fill it. But ancient traditions knew better. They honored the void, vision quests, dark nights of the soul, initiation rites. They all point here. This space of unknowing, this sacred pause. It's not optional, it's essential, because you can't rush rebirth, you can't skip becoming, you can only surrender and trust the stillness. You won't feel inspired here, you won't feel clear, you'll feel blank, weightless, directionless, but that's how transformation begins, not with noise, but with quiet, not with answers, but with space for better questions. This isn't stagnation, it's sacred slowness, a kind of soul hibernation, so deep, even your mind can't track it. Don't rush it, don't label it, don't fight it, let it reshape you. The void is not empty, it's full of everything you're about to become. If you can stay long enough to meet yourself there, the self doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it doesn't come crashing in, it whispers, gently, softly, almost too quiet to hear, but in the void, you can finally listen. You're no longer drowning in urgency, you're no longer sprinting toward approval, you're still, so you can hear what's real. And what's real is subtle, it won't push, it won't convince, it waits for you to notice, to lean in. This is the turning point, when you stop chasing and start responding, not to pressure, but to resonance. It feels different, not like fire, but like gravity, a pull, a knowing, a quiet yes. You don't need to force it, you follow it, not with urgency, with trust. The self invites, it doesn't impose, it doesn't care about optics, it cares about truth, about wholeness, about alignment. This is how new motivation begins, not from lack, but from fullness, not from fear, but from presence. You don't hustle. You move because something feels right. You don't chase impact. You create because beauty needs a vessel. You don't push to be seen. You share because something inside is overflowing. This is sacred energy, rooted in soul, sourced from inner quiet, unbothered by comparison. When you act from the self, you stop asking, will they like this? And start asking, is this real for me? The self doesn't need applause, it doesn't perform, it simply expresses. If you've felt that hum, that quiet pull, follow it. That's the voice you've been waiting for. This stillness you're in, it's not a pause, it's a portal, not a delay, but a doorway. You're not waiting to start, you're already becoming, even in the quiet, even when nothing feels clear. Healing doesn't always feel like light. Sometimes it feels like fog, like walking with no map. But your feet keep moving anyway, because something inside you knows, even if your mind doesn't, even if the world can't see it. Becoming doesn't always look productive. It often looks like rest, like long walks, like saying no, like stepping back. But that's not failure. That's integration. Your system recalibrating, your soul rewriting the script. In this phase, you won't be who you were, but you're not ready to perform again. And that's okay. You're learning to be. Not for others, not for approval, just for yourself. It's deeply unfamiliar because for so long your worth was wrapped in output, your value in doing, your identity in achieving. Now you're learning a new language, the language of stillness, of inner truth, of enoughness without evidence. This season won't last forever, but it's not meant to be rushed. It's meant to be honored, lived, breathed through, because what's forming isn't just new goals. It's a new self, a self rooted in truth, not trauma. So if you feel lost, congratulations, you've stepped off the map. And that's exactly where the real path begins. Stay, soften, let the stillness hold you. You're becoming even here. Then one day, something shifts. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. You feel a flicker. Not urgency, but interest. Not pressure, but pull. It's small, almost nothing, but it's honest, and that's everything. Maybe it's a color that stops you, a melody that lingers, a thought you can't shake, not because you should, but because you want to. That's new, that's different, that's you. The self has begun to speak. And this time, you listen, not out of fear, but out of resonance. You don't chase anymore, you follow, you don't grind, you respond. And suddenly, motivation doesn't feel like force, it feels like flow. You're no longer trying to prove, you're simply expressing. You're not begging life for meaning, you're creating it moment by moment, from inside, from truth, from peace. That's the new fuel, that's what lasts. Because it's not about who you should be, it's about who you already are. The silence didn't break you, it made space for this. For now, for the self that could finally emerge. This is the motivation that doesn't burn out, because it doesn't come from lack, it comes from fullness. You're not behind, you're not late, you're exactly on time for the life that's truly yours. So take the step, not to impress, but to align. Take the risk, not to escape fear, but to honor love, because you're ready now, not to perform, but to become. And this time, you're not doing it for anyone else. You're doing it for you.